you ever have cool ideas but just can't express them right? Like, you have a plan that would be awesome but just don't know how to get the party to agree to it? Or the party's on board but the GM thinks it would never work? Well, here are some suggestions. The most important thing to remember is that this is a game where the goal is to have fun. I know, it's incredibly silly to have to remind folks of that, but it's the fulcrum by which all of these conversations are leveraged. That's why the first method of getting your party on board with your nonsense is to join in the shenanigans of others. You might not have a personal stake in their backstory or care about them going on a shopping episode, but they probably don't have a stake in your pyramid scheme or care about you confronting your old mentor. Really running the gambit of encounters, I know. But the point is that this is a collaborative experience where everyone wants to have fun. If you support the other players in their ideas, they're far more likely to support you in yours. Not to mention, by being involved in the shopping episode, this can lead to tons of different outcomes. Maybe you have some low-stakes role-playing that fleshes out your dynamic with the other characters. You might find gear you didn't realize you needed and be better prepared for the future. In a more narrative game, the shopping episode might even give a lead on the plot or their backstory or yours. Suddenly, this boring thing you otherwise wouldn't care about explodes with opportunity, without the GM even getting involved. Not to mention, you just made whoever wanted to go on that shopping episode feel like the party cared, which means they're more inclined to care about your ideas. It's a win-win, and oftentimes a win-win-win if the GM capitalizes on the golden opportunity you gave them. The same thing applies to pursuing a character's backstory. Tons of folks I know complain about their party not caring about their backstory, but by the same token, they don't put in the effort to care about their party members' backstories. Outside of the purely selfish angle that putting in the effort to engage with the other party members' backstories will lead to the party members engaging with yours, the easiest way to increase your own engagement in a plot point is to actually engage with the plot point. So many players check out of the game when it isn't their turn or go on their phone when the spotlight is on someone else, but you can not play D&D or Lancer or any other TTRPG anytime you want. Why are you choosing to not play the one time the group got together, especially after complaining all month that the session got rescheduled so many times? Yeah, I see you. The second method is to negotiate. Now, when I say that, most players assume that's what they do, but that's not what most players do, at least in my experience. Most players put forward an idea in character, someone rejects it in character, and then very quickly it devolves into an argument out of character instead of a productive negotiation. So the way to solve this is to approach the situation backwards. Start with the out-of-game context since your fellow players can't read your thoughts. At least, I hope they can't. Let me explain. When you put forward an idea, say, I think we should sneak into the castle through the dungeon. This is all the context your party has for your idea. They don't know that the secret note the DM gave you says the dungeons are connected to the sewers, or that you have a potion of invisibility on your character sheet. So to your party, you just made the claim, let's sneak into this heavily fortified location through one of the least accessible and most heavily guarded areas. It's simply miscommunication, but that's 90% of arguments, at least when it comes to planning. Instead, if you opened with, I think we should sneak into the castle through the dungeon. The note I found earlier says the dungeons are connected to the sewers, and with my potion of invisibility, I can get through undetected. That was one extra sentence of context spoken out of character, but it probably just saved upwards of 10 minutes of arguments. And if you have any character reasons for pursuing this particular plan, you can follow up the context with in-character justification. Or give that context in character to begin with. Sure, the party might still disagree with this idea, but at least they know why you suggested it and can respond accordingly. You might even find other players who agree with you as a player, but disagree in character. All of these player arguments suddenly become character strategizing, which is rife with hooks for role-playing and party tension. But not superficial tension where players are sniping at each other, narrative tension where characters can butt heads without any players feeling attacked. Here's one extra method directed at GMs. Out of character, explain why your character would want this idea to happen and what your character's goal is for it. Focus on the narrative elements of it and how it would push either the plot or party dynamics forward. That's it. That's the method. It's not a silver bullet, but you'd be surprised how often GMs are willing to let the wildest things slide when they know what the end goal is. For example, saying, I want to start a pyramid scheme is just going to get a groan or an eye roll from most GMs. They might allow it, but they're not going to be invested in it. Saying, I want to start a pyramid scheme because then I'll get super rich and have a network of informants so I can compete with the Thieves Guild. paints a very different picture. The GM might still not think it's a good idea, but the wheels are turning. They know you're doing this for money and information, but most importantly, it's to combat the Thieves Guild. It's not some random joke you wanted to derail the story with, it's weaponizing silliness to engage with the narrative. Assuming you're in a narrative game, GMs will almost universally agree to anything that engages with the plot. It might have consequences, but so long as you're pushing the narrative forward, GMs have way higher tolerance for nonsense. Just don't lie about it. Actually consider the narrative impact of your decisions before you suggest them. 5 seconds of thought for 5 seconds of context means you spend 10 seconds to save 10 minutes of arguments. I think that's worth it. Not conventionally scary, I know, but negotiation and conflict is something that terrifies more people than death. Less than public speaking, but it's up there. Always happy to get on my soapbox and repeat my mantra, this is a collaborative experience where the goal is to have fun. Because goodness, do people need to hear it. Remember that none of these are mind control. You'll still need to compromise because, collaborative experience, but you'd be shocked by how many arguments this diffuses before they even really start. Next week, I want to look at one of the most popular horror D&D adventures and why you shouldn't run it for this Halloween. And of course, what you should run instead. Have fun.